everyone, and welcome to this week's Culture Report. I'm Antonia Velez. We've hit the fourth week of the government shutdown, which means thousands of federal workers have been going without pay for nearly a month. It's now the second longest shutdown ever, and there's still no end in sight. One federal worker says he's prepared for this, but countless others aren't in his same boat.
This is my third government shutdown, so we've taken steps to prepare for this kind of thing. We've got some savings. Some of our newer, younger employees, of course, they don't have that kind of savings. Some of our older people who are close to retirement, their money is tied up in various things. You know, this is getting harder and harder. It's not something that you would expect to ever have to do when you have a decent job.
And it isn't just federal employees dealing with the consequences of the shutdown. Thousands of people around the country, including in Colorado, may lose their SNAP benefits in November if Congress can't come to an agreement. This week, Governor Jared Polis said he's asking for $10 million in emergency food bank assistance from the Joint Budget Committee because food banks won't be able to support the influx of people who need help. And the shaky ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is tepidly nearing its second week, despite things like recent spurts of violence, clashing around aid access and hostage returns, and both groups accusing each other of violating the ceasefire terms. Vice President J.D. Vance and other U.S. envoys traveled to Israel, and Vance seemed optimistic about the truce, but still pointed to questions that remain about the 20-point plan and the future of war-torn Gaza. Dr. Mohammed Kaziz, a Colorado pediatrician who spent weeks of his vacation time caring for kids in Gaza, said the territory is the most devastated place he's ever seen. He described scenes of widespread injury and death and said thousands of children who remain in Gaza still need urgent medical evacuation.
While I am overjoyed that the bombs have stopped falling, at the same time I realize the amount of work that remains.
The International Court of Justice determined Israel must work with UN agencies to bring in humanitarian aid in Gaza, rebuking the blockade Israel imposed on the enclave months ago. The ICJ also said Israel is obligated to support the UNRWA, which is Gaza's main provider of aid, after Israel essentially banned the organization last year. And for the first time ever, Japan has a woman as prime minister. Sanae Takaichi's election is definitely significant for a place that has one of the lowest rankings for gender equality globally, and where women have historically been underrepresented in politics. However, Takaichi has some strongly conservative views. She's showed support for anti-immigrant policies, opposed same-sex marriage, and, to the surprise of some, championed laws that align with traditional gender roles, like one that only allows men to be Japan's emperor. Dr. Miriam Kingsburg-Kadia, a professor in CU Boulder's history department, says that while Takaichi's election might serve as inspiration for future generations of women, we can't really expect her to push a feminist agenda. But even that is filled with nuance.
To some extent, to advance her career, it's been important for her to espouse gender norms typically associated with masculinity. And she's been very vocal about having to do that. The pressure has really been on women who want to reach those top echelons of power to perform as men in some way and to demonstrate that they can do that to achieve the credibility they need. And part of that strategy has been adopting these highly conservative views, not just with respect to gender, but also with respect to economic and foreign policy.
Now, Dr. Kingsburg-Kadia added that despite being conservative politically, Takaichi's personal life is anything but. She decided to pursue a university career despite discouragement from her parents for fear that it would mess with her marriage prospects. She was also known to be somewhat of a biker and played in a heavy metal band in her youth. And a fun fact, too, her start in politics is kind of a crazy Colorado connection. She was the congressional intern for Representative Patricia Schroeder, who was Colorado's first female representative in Congress. And more than a dozen women said they were mistreated and neglected during immigration custody while they were pregnant. This is according to a letter sent to ICE officials and several Senate committees based on interviews with women detained in Louisiana and Georgia. The women said they were put in solitary confinement, got substandard medical care, were shackled, and received poor quality meals while they were pregnant or miscarrying. The letter was signed by several organizations, including the ACLU, which are also also calling for ICE to release all pregnant women and stop detaining people who are pregnant, postpartum, or nursing. And in Colorado, Governor Polis is standing by his intention to comply with a subpoena from ICE. Polis says turning over data on dozens of families would help the feds with a human trafficking investigation. A judge has been skeptical of those claims and already blocked some state employees from releasing information to immigration agents. ICE wants information from Colorado on 35 adults caring for unaccompanied minors who are in the country without legal status. A former state employee sued, arguing state law kept them from gathering and providing that information. In July, a Denver judge sided with that employee, barring them from turning over the information. Now, in response, the governor's lawyer wrote he would still like to provide some of the information to ICE. The subpoena Polis wants to comply with is not signed by a judge and doesn't provide any specifics about the investigation. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, from October of last year through September, more than 400 unaccompanied children without legal status have been released to sponsors in Colorado. From groovy to riz, every generation has had those expressions that make parents, teachers, and employers feel confused, sometimes annoyed, and, well, old. The current phrase heard everywhere now is 6-7. It's become so prominent that some schools are even banning the phrase, saying it's disruptive to their classroom. So why do these generational slang phrases exist? And is there a benefit to young people? Joining me now is Kristen Bovaert-Abo, a professor of English at the University of Northern Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, let's start with the question that everyone wants to know. What is the meaning behind 6-7? Is there even a meaning?
So far, no. No.
Great.
It seems to come from this song released in 2024 by the Philadelphia rapper Skrilla. In his song Doot Doot, he mentioned 6-7 2 times, but it became this internet sensation. And in December 2024, it added in this hand gesture, palms upraised, up and down, kind of like weighing scales or kind of a so-so motion. And people have been going a little crazy trying to figure out what exactly it might mean. There's speculation maybe he's referencing 67th Street in either Philadelphia or Chicago, possibly referencing Police Code 1067. There have been a lot of video clips pairing the song with the NBA basketball player LaMelo Ball, whose height just happens to be 6'7".
Checks out.
Of course, the rapper Skrilla has not made any kind of comment as to what exactly 6-7 means, but mostly it just seems to be a nonsense phrase, and really that's the fun of it.
Right. I mean, does it matter that phrases like these and like slang doesn't really have a real quote unquote meaning?
Not really. No. And again, that's the fun, the creativity of it.
Yeah, so let's talk about the history of that. Like how far back have these like seemingly nonsensical phrases been picked up by kids?
Oh, pretty much as long as there has been language. And we go back to Roman times. There's graffiti showing slang. I'm a medievalist, so Geoffrey Chaucer in his 14th century Canterbury Tales, he uses the term bones to refer to dice. And that's a term that even today still is used as slang for dice. In the 13th century, there's a song, Sumur is a Kuminin, and it's celebrating spring, and it's the first recorded instance of the word fart. And so slang has always been around, and there's plenty of instances where a word starts out as slang, but then it starts to become accepted, and nowadays we don't even think twice about a word. The word freshman or dwindle, glib, crash, those all started out as slang terms, but now we use them all the time.
That's so true. I mean, I think slay is in the dictionary, right? Or something like that.
Yes.
But let's talk about the meaning of why kids might be picking these up. Like, does it provide some sort of comfort for them, like a sense of belonging? Talk to me a little bit about what that means for kids.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just want to briefly note that a lot of times, especially adults, they associate slang as an act of rebellion. And a lot of that can be traced back to 1828 when Noah Webster of the Merriam-Webster dictionary fame, he defined slang in 1828 as low, vulgar, unmeaning language. And his dictionary and his style guides were incredibly popular, and they still influence a lot of our attitudes towards language today. But a lot of times, the use of slang is not necessarily an act of rebellion, but rather it's an expression of human creativity. It's a desire for something fresh, something new. Slang is humorous, it's metaphorical, it's playful.
Right.
And especially for kids. And slang is across all age groups. So it's a lot of times we tend to associate slang with younger generations, but they're not the ones just using slang. Although in the case of 6-7, I think it's pretty much there. That's very heavily on them. But especially for kids, using slang, it's really important for their sense of belonging because it's a way of helping to mark it. Well, it's in-group language. It gives them, it helps them to show that they're in on the joke. It gives them a sense of belonging that they, so it's shared humor, especially when they are able to look around and see all of the confused looks on the adults. That's a way of setting them apart from the adult speakers. And sometimes too, slang is a way of not just distinguishing the adolescents from the adults, it's also a way of in-group language of separating specific teenage groups from other teenage groups.
Right, like
too.
age, like things like that. Totally. Now that more and more adults are using the term 6-7, like even in the news, our anchors were saying it all this morning, for example, people are saying that it's kind of like on the outs. Talk to me a little bit about that, like the cycle of slang, like it becoming a cool thing, and then once it's formalized, maybe not so much. Like, why does that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really going to be fascinating to watch to see if it sticks around or if it goes away. And I think, and it can be really hard to tell if a word has staying power or not. And a lot of it comes down to if it has use. And so sometimes, yeah, if the old people get in on the joke, it's no longer funny anymore. But if a word has staying power, like cool, a lot of times people thought that word was just going to be a flash in the pan. Because again, cool was a word where it originally started, it was a very narrow, specific term, only applied to a specific style, artistic style for jazz musicians. But now we apply it to everything. Yeah. And so that one definitely had staying power. But in the case of something like 6-7, if it mostly stays having no real meaning, I think it'll easily get replaced by whatever the next new flashy thing is going to be. Kind of like skibbity toilet.
Oh my goodness. Don't even get me started on that. I still don't understand what that means.
Well, and you're not supposed to, because that's another nonsense term, although Cambridge Dictionary did add it earlier this year to their dictionary.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but when the case of like skibbity toilet, if you look at Google Trends, the searches for that one really started declining heavily at the end of 2024. Now, and people might still be using it in everyday speech, but it's not as interesting to people anymore. I think it's dying out.
Once it's
and it might be because 6-7 is becoming more interesting. It's replaced it. But because 6-7 has gotten paired with the hand movement, and if people are starting to attach this meaning of kind of a so-so meaning, it's becoming useful. So maybe it'll stick around. And especially when shows like South Park really draw a lot of attention to it, because that way it's a way of making teenagers feel validated and seen. So maybe it might have some more staying power. Maybe not. It's hard to see.
Really interesting stuff. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all this knowledge. This is truly fascinating. Now, something we love to do here on the Culture Report is shout out the people in our community who are doing the work to make it a better, brighter place. And we start with a university in Colorado that is helping tackle food insecurity in the state through gardening. CSU Extension has a program called Grow and Give that's been teaching people how to grow food at home and donate the surplus since 2020. The process is simple. Folks who are interested can access resources with local expertise on gardening in 47 of Colorado's 64 counties. Then gardeners can grow a little extra if they're able to. And finally, using the Fresh Food Connect app, people can search for nearby food banks or hunger relief agencies that accept homegrown produce and just bring it on over.
Homegrown and local produce offers an opportunity for that nutrient-dense food to get in somebody's belly who needs it, right? And oftentimes those are prized donations. So it's something that people are looking for at food banks and they're not always on the shelf. You can grow zucchini, you can donate some tomatoes, you can grow green beans and donate those locally. But I think it's showing up, making the donation and making that connection with a food bank and starting to understand what food insecurity looks like in your communities and the opportunity for everyday Coloradans to contribute and make a difference.
And next up, Denver's Rhino neighborhood hosted the first mural festival exclusively featuring art from deaf and hard of hearing individuals. The festival is called KISFIS. It's an American Sign Language phrase meaning to love or enjoy something a lot. The festival ended this week, but for those who missed it, an exhibit opening this weekend highlights the artist's creative process. The behind-the-scenes exhibit will start Saturday at Anythink Brighton, which is part of Adams County's library system. You can find more information on the KISFISMuralFestival.com website. And we'd love some help to figure out who deserves a shout out next week. Whether it's one person or a whole organization, we want to hear about the people who are making a difference in your community. So send us a text at 303-871-1491 and tell us about the folks you think deserve a 9 shout out. And don't be surprised when we reach back out to ask you more about your special people. And if you want to see any more Culture Report or any of our 9 News content, you can find us on the 9 News Plus app or 9news.com. We'll be right back.